Let's hope this is working out now. Let's see. There we go. Okay, so I'm gonna wait for some people to funnel in here so we can get this going on this podcast that we're gonna be doing, this live podcast, I guess you could call it. The sun's super bright. I'm gonna lower the sun shade a little bit because we got the sunset coming in. What's going on, guys? How you all doing? There you go. That's a lot better. All right, what's up, guys? How you all doing? So today we're going to be interviewing Alina Morse. So Alina Morse, she's 15 now, and she's built a multi-million-dollar company from lollipops. And so I'm going to go ahead and let her join in here. I just have to wait for her. There we go. All right, there we go. Let's see if we can get her in here. Yo, what's good? How you doing?
Good. How are you? Am I frozen?
No, you're not frozen.
Oh, for me, I'm frozen. Weird. Yeah.
Oh, man. I don't know. Glitching, I guess, Instagram. But you're not frozen on mine. Oh, well, now you are. Now you're frozen. Here, how about this? Let's try this out. Let me go ahead and add you in here. Let me re-add you in here. So then maybe if we re-add her in here, then that will probably work a little bit better. Let's see if I can find her. 1 second, guys. Having a little bit of technical difficulties while we get her in here. Okay, there we go. All right, there you go. Had a little technical difficulty there. Wait for her to get in here. Okay, there we go. Is it good now?
Yeah.
Okay, hopefully. Just freezes mid, talking. Yeah, that'll be funny.
Yeah, I don't know what's up with my stuff tonight, but good. You know.
You busy?
Going through life. Yeah, super busy between school and work and everything.
Yeah.
Honestly, you would think I don't know, being at home and doing everything virtual is not as busy, but somehow it gets even busier.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, that's the thing. For me, I feel like in person is always better, but at the same time, I don't know. Yeah, well, here's how I see it. In person's better, but to save time, it's better to do it over the internet because you just flip a switch off. That's what I always all right, let me real quick put a post so we can pin it so people know your at and everything. Actually, can you put your at in the chat for me real quick? And that way I can get that saved in here because I don't remember your exact at. Okay, there you go. So Alina Star More. Is that your middle name or no?
Yeah, that's actually my middle name.
So Star is your middle name.
Mm-hmm.
Dang, that's crazy. Okay. You're lucky on that one. Mine's Andrew, so I didn't really get some fancy name like Star in it.
Well, it's my mom's maiden name, so it wasn't just wasn't just a super cool, she's gonna be a cool kid with a cool middle name. It was no, my mom's maiden name, so it's still cool. I'm not complaining.
You're pretty lucky. Okay, cool. So I think we got your pen. Cool. All right, guys. So today we're just going to get started. What I'm going to do is I'm going to end up clipping this later for an actual podcast. So just start it off as if it's a podcast. Obviously, we're already live, but I'm just going to get started with this. All right, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Uncensored Business Podcast. Today we're with Alina, and so Alina Morse, she's built a multi-million-dollar company at you're 15 now, right?
Yeah.
You're 15 now, but you started. How old were you when you started?
I actually came up with the idea for my company, Zolly Candy, when I was 7 years old.
7. That's crazy. Yeah, that's the thing. When you look at success, I've noticed when you talk to successful people, it took them a long time to get where they are. I mean, you know Brennan, right? Brennan Agron. Yeah. The exact same thing we talked about. It takes a long time for them to become somewhat successful, right? You see, kind of the headlines, right? Like multi-millionaire, blah, blah, blah. But you don't realize that even though they're young, they start when they're even younger. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
exactly. For me, I started doing YouTube when I was 16, and then I tried to figure out how to turn into a real 6-figure business and all this other stuff. And it wasn't until I was 18 where I crossed 6 figures, I think. So, you get to that level of putting the time in, and people don't realize how much time that gets put into to build a company and the amount of infrastructure I'm assuming that you guys have with Zolly Lot. I mean, so you guys are in Walmart, right? Are you in Walmart?
Yep, we're in Walmart, Target, CVS, Walgreens, so all the big hitters in the U.S. as well as, those equivalents internationally.
Yeah, see, that's something that most e-com people can't even pull off. to be able to get into a position like that where you're with those big brands and like in stores, that's really hard to pull off. Also on Amazon, aren't you like one of the top candy selections or whatever you call it?
Yeah, so out of all sugar and sugar-free candy on Amazon, we're number 4 and number 8. So we have two of our best-selling SKUs in the top 10, which is a pretty big deal, especially because, you know, what shows on Amazon influences about 70% of buying decisions in store. So we have that, you know, strong foundation in online sales, and we've started, you know, really seeing that show through in our retail.
Yeah. I mean, for those of you who don't know her company, so pretty much how it is, when you started, originally it was more so thinking, all right, so candy, you know, every kid loves candy. But the problem with that is that it can cause cavities and other, you know, problems health-wise. And so in your head, you're like, what if there's an alternative where it still tastes good, but it doesn't actually hurt your teeth? And actually, even better than that, does yours actually help your teeth?
Yeah. So not only is Ollie candy not bad for you, it's actually good for you. Yeah. So it has long-term, long-lasting health benefits.
Yeah, which is right there. That idea alone, you know, is a multi-million-dollar idea, because like every kid loves candy, right? And the only problem with parents is like, obviously parents don't want to see their kid have cavities and then they have to pay the medical bills on that, right? So like, you know, it makes sense. And so that logically, it's like an alternative where the kid still gets candy, but it doesn't actually affect them. And so that company alone was a genius idea. Did you, I think you went on Shark Tank. Didn't you go on Shark Tank, or did you like talk to the Shark Tank investors?
Yeah, so there's like 2 things that we did kind of involving Shark Tank. My first ever media appearance, I was live on Good Morning America when I was 9 years old, and it was like a kids Shark Tank edition situation. And so they had Damon John and George Stephanopoulos, one of the GMA hosts, and they basically like judge your company. But there was no like actual Shark Tank deals involved. But it was still a super amazing experience. Flash forward like maybe a year and a half, 2 years, I went on Shark Tank and they never aired my episode.
Really?
So they only air about 40% of what they shoot. So, you know, a lot of the people that go on Shark Tank, they never actually get to see their episode, but they did release photos to actually promote the show. They just never, you know, aired the whole episode, but it is what it is.
It's because the thing with Shark Tank, with the show itself, when you think about it, they're trying to find the good, almost clickbait, kind of like YouTube with my job. It's like we're trying to find the best moments, the clickbaity moments. And so sometimes, even if it's a good deal, even if it's like just basic knowledge and like you know, business, and it's a good idea, you know, whatever, that's sometimes not enough, because for them, they're trying to get clicks, they're trying to get people to continue to watch the entire episode. So something that's just normal isn't for them always, right? And so that's one of the difficulties. Yeah. I had friends who actually went on Shark Tank too, and like the same problem. Even if they get a deal, they can't really, like, their thing isn't really showed on air. You know what I mean? Just because it's a normal pitch. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like, and when they don't have the drama that they look for. I mean, it's reality TV. Right. And you know, that's part of the reason so many people love the show. They love the drama, they love the suspense. And you know, that's part of the reasons I love the show, you know, myself too. But you know, when you don't really give them that drama and that you know, suspense, or you know, breakdown crying, or you know, have that you know, reaction that they're kind of looking for you know, reality TV. It's just, you know, they're not going to air it.
What you should have done? What you should have done is go in there, be like, all right, we're going to fake cry in this moment, all right? Because you're partnered with your dad, right? Your dad helps you with everything?
Yeah.
Just be like, talk to your dad, be like, all right, Dad, I want you to yell at me in the middle.
That would have been funny. And I also think, you know, it was such a good experience, even behind the scenes, just to even go there and meet some other entrepreneurs that were there, and just go through the whole process, because that was the first time I was ever on like a big production show. Other than like Good Morning America, I had only done like news, and then like some like publications and stuff, but I was still, you know, really young at that point. And since then I've done a lot of other stuff on set, but it was kind of the first look into the film world. And so that was really interesting for me.
Yeah, one thing that's interesting with you is because, like, unlike me, so when I started doing YouTube, thankfully I've been able to kind of, like, I was in a position where my dad was like, look, you can drop out for 6 months and figure it out. If you can make a full-time living after the 6 months, then look, like, you're good. Like, you know what I mean? Like, do your own thing. So that way you can put your time and energy 100% into that thing to crush it. But the one thing that's interesting with you is your parents, I don't know if you ever asked your parents to drop out or whatever, but like you were in a position where you have to still figure out how to balance that personal life of dealing with school and then also you do dance, right? Do you still do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, doing dance and then also obviously running a company, right? And so you're trying to balance all of that. So, you probably get this a decent amount of times, but like, how do you do this? But especially for the young entrepreneurs who are going to school, even college, how do you think your kind of philosophy on balancing it all and managing it all?
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, I think, as a kid, you should be able to do it all. And I'm also really lucky. I have a really great support system. And, my parents drive me everywhere because I don't have my license.
Right.
So, I definitely have a lot of great people on my side, getting me from place to place and, being there for me and supporting me in wanting to do, everything. And, from a school standpoint, I've always felt that in education, especially in my line of work, it's very important. I'm not saying you have to go to business school, but a lot of that, simple, math stuff and whatever, I think that, can definitely be reflected back into the company. Even if it's for me just trying to understand what my accountant is, telling me. And I've always kind of been the person who wants to understand and who wants to be a part of everything.
Right.
And, you can't be a part of everything, I know. And I've gotten that a lot, you have to delegate and such, but I definitely, have always been one to try and immersify myself in all aspects of the company. But I also think like the socialization part of, going to school and meeting my friends and having that day-to-day social interaction, is really, really important. And I think that, helps me personally because I'm in meetings and on, phone calls and now on Zoom calls with all of these, adult executives. And so I know how to talk to the executives.
You just need time to be yourself and be a kid.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, exactly. That's the thing I ran into when I started out too. And eventually got to the point because, obviously I didn't have much of a social life when I dropped out and everything. So because of that, all my time was into trying to run the business because I'm like, well, if I screw up if I don't make it in the next 6 months, I have to do double work. So obviously there's a level where I have to pull it off. So I would limit the amount of times I would go out. And one thing I did realize to a certain level I suffered was once you stop interacting with people for some time, like normal people, like our age wise, like, college, for me, it's college kids, for you, high school, whatever. The problem you run into is that you kind of forget how to be a normal kid when you're always in calls with adults. You know what I mean? You kind of forget how to just have that childhood kind of creativity. And that what I've realized, especially with you two, with what I do, like that childhood creativity is almost important in order for you to come up with innovative ideas, to kind of level up the business, come up with better ways of doing it, to just market to people, especially for you because you're in the demographics of kids, right? And so you got to figure out how can I come up with maybe some special way to market this, something that is different that will hook, these kids in. And that's something that requires you to kind of think in their head. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. You're right on the head. I think that's the expression.
I think it's the term.
I don't know. But it's definitely, totally like that. When I was younger and starting, to kind of create the company, I had that mindset. I had that, curious, creative mindset, like nothing is impossible. And I definitely still have that, but I got, sort of a reality check from, getting said no to, and, getting rejection and everything like that you deal with not only getting older, but also running a company. And oh, right on the money. Okay, that was the
Right on
that
the
was the
money.
expression. Okay. But definitely having that childlike curiosity and tenacity is so key. And that's why I always say it's so important to keep asking questions
Yeah.
because, no matter what age you are, it's important to still be curious because that's the best way to continue learning and to better yourself. And so I definitely try and bring a lot of fun and a lot of childhood creativity um, and excitement into work because I don't think business has to be serious all the time.
Yeah.
I think it's a great thing to have kids in business. It's a great thing to have young entrepreneurs because they bring new energy and a different perspective.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's super key to just have fun.
Yeah. One thing I really noticed though, out of like successful entrepreneurs is the fact that them being curious and always asking questions. Because that's the only way you get places. Like, you don't know really anything. Even if you like, even with me with YouTube, I think, okay, maybe I know a lot about YouTube, but I don't know anything about YouTube, if that makes sense. Like, it's kind of like that level where there's so much I don't know that's going on because I don't know what questions to ask sometimes. So sometimes it's just learning from other people, seeing what they're doing, how they're running their systems. I know Brennan, because he's a very interesting guy to me because with him, the way he operates, he's always curious. He's always asking questions to other people, even people in his own space on how they run operations, and sometimes people who have nothing to do with his space, how they run operations. Because what he wants to see is if he can take something from those little things and combine it with what he is good at and what he's doing with his own business. And so just the idea of being curious is such an important thing, I feel like, to business, and you can't really go places unless you're willing to kind of humble yourself and ask those questions to successful people.
Yeah. Brennan is such a great example of that. He always asks the best questions. And, even when I'm not even thinking about it, like afterwards, I'm like, wow, that was a really good question. Like, how does he just come up with these? He needs to be like a journalist or something.
Yeah, he just interviews
Um,
for a living. That's literally his job at this point.
yeah, I mean, he is really good at just like right off the cuff coming up with like very thoughtful questions. Um, and I definitely admire him as an entrepreneur and as a friend. Um, but I think it's so important also to be connecting with other young entrepreneurs and other people, no matter what industry they're in, because there's not that many of us, and I always try and create connections between people that I know to other young entrepreneurs, because I think it's so important to have those people that are experiencing the same things that you are.
Yeah.
Because, I can talk to Brennan or one of my other close friends, Carson, about, how you feel out of the loop in high school or,
Yeah.
Feeling like, you're so busy with work that you just can't think about anything else. But they like completely get it. Whereas, my friends from school or my friends from dance, they wouldn't get it.
Right.
And so, it's definitely great to have that, perspective from them as well, and have, those connections that really are hard to find.
Yeah, no, 100%. I just think that's like important to build those relationships at the end of the day. Because I know for me, when I was going through, some of the kind of, some of the things where, like, for example, like there's a point in my business where, I used to do, 8, 9 hours a day of work, right? And then it got to a point where I started delegating a lot of the work, and now I'm working maybe an hour a day. And I was like, is this good? Because like a piece of me almost feels like if I'm not working that 8 or 9 hours, I'm going backwards, not forwards. But then you look at the data and it shows that you're going forwards. Like, how does this make any sense? Like your brain's confused. And then I would call up my buddies who, run like a big Snapchat network and everything. So they kind of do the same thing. They delegate for their content on Snapchat. And I asked the question, I was like, look, like, is this normal? Like, am I doing something wrong? He's like, no, like, this is completely normal. It's like eventually in business, you get to a point where you can delegate a lot of the work and then you can free up your time for something new. And so if I didn't have that person, I might still to this day be further behind just from the mindset alone of not knowing if I'm doing enough.
You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
that really messes with you. So just having those relationships and building those relationships as you go in your career is so important, I feel like. But I want to go ahead and pivot to something I think that can be beneficial for other people who are, whether it be starting out or in the middle of their journey with entrepreneurship, and kind of like the key advice you think that you kind of ran into along the way with your journey on entrepreneurship.
Yeah, so like I was talking about before, asking questions is so key. Something I've noticed from, working with people of all ages, especially in the candy industry, is that, their business have been around for so long, and they're already successful, but they stop asking questions and they stop wondering how they can be better, what they can do next. And so I think, asking questions, no matter what age you are, super key, especially if you want to start an entrepreneurial journey. I would also say, build a team, because building a team of people is so important, especially people that, you click with and you find that, they show the skills of somebody who is very passionate and takes a lot of, proactivity. I don't know if that's a word, but
I don't know.
we're going to say it's a word. They're very proactive, and you don't have to micromanage, and you feel like you can trust these people, because, as a CEO, you can't do everything, and you can't micromanage every aspect of the company, especially as it's growing at such a fast rate. You have to, trust the people that you're working with. So building that team is really important. I always say, business is a team sport, because, other than my school's pom team, I don't do any sports, so business is like my sport.
Yeah.
And finally, I would say, work hard, try, believe, and never give up. And that's a motto that I've been told probably since I was 2 or 3 years old. And it just kind of sums up, everything that you should think about when you're feeling, down on yourself, feeling like, nobody's in your corner. But to just pick yourself up, work hard, try, believe, and never give up. And, that's a key to motivate yourself.
Yeah, I think one thing I really like, there's a clip of Kevin Hart, and he pointed out in an interview, he's like the hardest thing that people don't realize with like entrepreneurship, with just anything, like trying to go after being an athlete or whatever. The hardest thing is waking up consistently on a daily basis. My computer's went off. Doing something on a consistent basis and like putting the work in that you're supposed to do, and then getting to a point where the like at the end of the night, nothing has really, like, you're not moved anywhere. If that makes sense. Like you're still where you are, but you're having put so much work into it. You put so much energy into it, and you have to do that consistently every day, and you don't see much benefits. Like that is the hardest part. Like I went through that when I was starting out, was like, especially in the very beginning when you don't know what you're doing. You know what I mean? Like you're waking up every day, you're putting so much energy into it. You don't know if you're going to go places, and you don't see really anything happening yet, right? Like you upload a video and you see 5 views, you're like, man, like it's over. Like I'm not going anywhere. And if it sucks to, you know what I mean, that feeling. But the difference is the people who stay in there and kind of continue to push every day, eventually you get a breakthrough. And I think that's what differentiates successful people and, I guess non-successful people, because the problem is they weren't willing to kind of stay in there long enough at that thing and really keep adapting and keep giving an edge into it. And it's hard. It's not easy, because it really tests your mental on if you can handle that.
Yeah. And that's actually a funny thing about my industry, is that, people have tried to make healthy candy before. They've tried to make it the same way I make it, but they give up because there's a certain part in the process where the product just melts. And that's due to how, or in what temperature the product is made. So if it's made at such a low temperature, it'll crystallize. If it's made at too high of a temperature, it will melt anywhere above room temperature. And so, that's something that we struggled with for months until finally figuring it out. And then we realized why people hadn't been successful in making this candy anymore. It's not because nobody had the idea. It's because nobody stuck around long enough or worked hard enough to figure it out. And so that's why, we are the only people in this category. Yeah. And so it's interesting to see it that way. And it's so key. That's why it's so key, because we wouldn't have been successful, and we wouldn't have grown at all if not for, the tenacity and the trial and error And although that, it was difficult, and it was, definitely a struggle, and it made you want to quit so bad, it's just about,
Like,
telling yourself that you can do it.
yeah, like how many times, like when you were starting out, you had those doubts in your head all the time, like every day, pretty much. Like, did you
Yeah.
have that?
And yeah. And even as a kid, you don't think anything's impossible. But when you're starting to get into, this venture, and you're really, going all in, putting money into it, putting time into it, it definitely gets scary, and it gets to feel very real. Um, and, you don't know if you can actually pull it off.
Right.
And I definitely felt that. I also felt a lot of, negativity from buyers, from, retailers, executives, people telling me that, I couldn't do this just because I'm a kid.
Mm.
And, looking back on that, I really shouldn't have beat myself up about it, because, I think it's awesome when
Yeah,
kids go into business. And I think
exactly.
it's very brave,
Yeah.
to even undertake that amount of stress and pressure and time, and hard work.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
definitely think, yeah.
I think doubting, if you're not doubting yourself, then that means you're not growing at the end of the day. And what you really want to be going after is when you're doubting yourself. I think people think that doubting, it means that you should stop. But I feel like doubting is actually a good thing, because it means that you're doing something you've never done before, which means you need to constantly go after it. You know what I mean? You got to run into that fire, because that's where you're going to grow the most. And it's always better to grow than it is to not do anything, right? Sure, you have to go through some stuff to get there, but you'll be way more happy when you make it on the other side than if you would have just sat on the couch all day long. And I think that's
And
something
even if
that
you
people,
fail,
yeah,
even if you fail, it's the experience.
no, exactly.
And I've definitely, fighting for, a certain retailer, you fight and you fight and you fight, and they're not going to put you in, and you just have to say, you know what? Oh, well, now I'm
Yeah,
going to, use the same tactic on the next one, and I'm going
yeah.
to get the next one.
And also, like,
Um,
so did it happen to you when you get rejected from some of those deals and you're like, all right, well, how about this? We're going to go to this guy over here. We're going to make that deal. It's going to blow up their business. And then those people are going to come back to us now they have to come back to us with a better deal. You know what I mean? Because, like, now we're showing them that we're actually valuable and they didn't notice us.
yeah, we've definitely experienced that, especially because, there's nothing like us on the market. And so it's scary for retailers, which is understandable. You want to sell something that, in data, and in history, proves that it sells well, it's popular, it's good, it makes you look good because it looks like you're selling a lot.
Right.
And so it's definitely scary, bringing in a small company, that, has never been done. And so, we've seen a lot of people reject us initially, and then come back in a year and a half, even 6 months, and they see our sales in either their competitor, or another retailer, and it lights a fire under their butt. And they
Yeah.
realize, I could have been first,
Yeah.
but instead, I'm last.
Yeah, because they weren't willing to put the risk. Yeah, like they weren't really like that's the thing with business. It's a risk. That's just part of the game. And usually, though, that's why I like business, because you can still control that risk factor. Sure, you can fail, but that doesn't mean you're a failure, right? You become a failure when you give up. When you give up right when you fail, then that's the title failure you get. You don't become a failure, because if you keep getting back up and you're trying to adapt and try new things, eventually you're going to hit success. It's just odds. You're going to hit success one day. And when you do, then you're a success story, but you had to be, you had to fail so many times to get there. And people don't realize that's just part of the process. Like, I failed on probably 7 other YouTube channels before my first one took off. You know what I mean? So it's just one of those things where it's just part of the process to go through that. But what I want to ask you about was some tips, because you probably know this now. Some tips on probably for some people going after investors, going after, some deals, whether it be trying to get their product in a store, whatever it is. Like, what are some tips you probably picked up along the way for it?
Yeah, so I mean, I would say for any kind of meeting, no matter if it's an investor meeting, no matter if it's a meeting with a retailer, basically any sort of meeting, you want to be very confident, and you want to know your stuff. being confident isn't enough. You have to actually know what you're talking about and be able to answer any question that they could throw at you. And I had to learn this the hard way because, being 9 or 10 years old in a business meeting and you don't know the answer to something, and then somebody else has to jump in and, you feel like an idiot, feel like you don't know what you're talking about. In reality, I did, but it's just, it's all part of growing up and learning.
Yeah.
But you want to know what you're talking about and you want to be passionate about it. If you're passionate about what you're trying to sell or you're trying to talk about or present, you should be passionate about it either way. But you want to show that passion and you want to get them excited about what you're talking about and want to invest or want to bring you into their stores or want to, collaborate with you. And so just being confident and being passionate are really, really key. I would also say, ask the right questions. For example, when you're in a buyer meeting and you have a limited amount of time, you want to say, what are you looking for? Where do you think we would fit best in your stores? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? What can we do for you?
Right.
Because people love to talk about themselves first, and they also love things that are exclusive to them or are perfectly designed and catered to them. So, it's less work on their part.
Right.
So, it's super key to have options for them and be flexible in creating something specific to their needs.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think people forget that, and when you're getting an investor, you're selling at the end of the day. When at the end of the day, you're trying to figure out how can you sell your product and make sense for that investor. And not every investor is going to fit right for them. Even if you have the best product in the world, it's probably not going to fit well for some people. And so you always have to ask questions and try to kind of almost hit them a little bit. Like, all right, so how does this work? Like, do you want this? Like, what do you expect? Like, what do you expect? Like, blah, blah, blah. Just asking them questions, get to know them, what they're looking for. And you can kind of figure out if you're right for them in the first place, because not every person is right for you, whether that be selling for a customer, selling to a business, selling to an investor. Like, not everyone's for you. You know what I mean? And
Exactly.
So by asking questions, that's literally how you sell.
Yeah, and you want to find people that, have similar viewpoints as you. You want to find somebody that's equally as excited and willing to be a partner, not just a bank.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I like to say about investors because, investors shouldn't just be, a wallet. They should be people that are a part of your company because you are giving them a part of your business that you have worked so hard on. And so, you want to make sure that your views align, you guys are on the same page, and that they're passionate and they're willing to, be a mentor as well as, a partner. So I would say that that's really key. Finding people that that are willing to invest is also, an easy way to go about that because, you already know them, you already feel comfortable with them. And so friends and family investment is always a safe route. But if you're looking for big investment, you want to make sure you have that connection.
Right. No, exactly. So, I want to hear what is kind of your future goals? Where are you trying to achieve? Let's say in the next 3-4 years, where do you want to be differently? Do you have those goals that you're thinking about right now in mind?
Yeah, I'm a big goal setter. Every year I set goals. But I am continuously trying to, not only grow on social media, grow on, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, even though I don't use it, just finding different ways to reach those different groups of people that could, be positively impacted by our company. As well as, continuing to expand our distribution internationally in more countries. We already sell in several countries, including China, Korea, France, the Philippines, the UK, just to name a few. And just continuing that growth internationally as well as nationally. Yes, it sounds like we have a lot of those hard hitters for big box retailers, but we want to, be in those small mom and pop shops as well, and just continue to be able to reach everyone. We also have our nonprofit that I started alongside the company, which is called the Million Smiles Initiative, where we give free Zollipops to schools across America to teach kids about the importance of oral health care and entrepreneurship, and that, kids can do anything. And, why not learn about entrepreneurship in schools as well? And I think that that's super important. So we want to continue to grow that.
Yeah, I think that's where schools are lacking. They're not teaching business enough. You know what I mean? To like kids. I mean, if you think about business is really what the foundation of like today's world is. So I think that's definitely a critical thing. And honestly, if I knew business way sooner when I was like really young, I think definitely would have been further ahead where I am now. But okay, so I want to go ahead and leave it off. I want you to give me like, what is the final thoughts about tips for the entrepreneurs? You want to give them takeaways of what they think you should think you've probably, I don't know, just in general tips that they can really take away from and move forward in life to really level up in their business, and maybe something you learned personally. Like, what's some takeaway you think you could give?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, obviously ask questions. I know I keep going back to that, but that's because it's so important. It's so key. No matter, if you want to start a business or you're already a business owner. I would also say, find a mission, whether that's, a personal mission or a personal goal. But, usually I find that people that have, a mission statement behind their company, for me, that's, making childhood tooth decay, no longer America's #1 epidemic in children. And, that's what drives me. That's what, makes me wake up in the morning and realize, okay, even though I'm getting hate, even though I don't feel like it, I'm going to keep working and I'm going to keep doing it because it's not for me. It's for all the kids that struggle with tooth decay, and have them, have protected smiles for years to come. So, finding something like that will really drive you. That's, not about money, not about fame. It's about, something within yourself that you want to fulfill for the greater good is super important, I found. And also, just work really hard. And I know it's going to feel like it's not going to work, and it's going to feel like you don't have any support or you don't have anyone in your corner. But if you continue to just work hard and not even think about failure, it's just all about keeping that positive attitude. Right.
Yeah, I love those takeaways. I think it's so important. I think the fact about like doing things for a purpose, I think that definitely works. One thing is like when you a lot of people start off when they're trying to just build a business to make money. I think it's okay to start off that way because you want to survive and you want to buy yourself some freedom. But then you're going to eventually get to a point where you're making money and you can pay the bills, you're fine. But now you don't feel so driven to get out of bed to do that work because now it's solved, right? The problem's solved. So eventually you're going to get to that phase of your life where you got to figure out if you're doing something you enjoy doing or you're doing something for purpose. You're going to have to find that eventually because otherwise that is going to fade away from you because you're going to self-sabotage yourself once you finally get to that point where your bills are paid. And so it's always about adapting your goals, and people's goals change all the time, right? Like that's for me, like my goals when I was a younger kid definitely changed a little bit and evolved over time when I got older. But yeah, I love this podcast. It's definitely like, I feel like it was very productive. I think some stuff that we point on that I don't think anyone else really points on about entrepreneurship. And also like we have a different perspective because we're super young for our age and where we are today. And so definitely I love where this went and everything. Guys, go ahead and help Alina. Are you trying to get to, 10K followers? Is that what you're trying to get to? Yeah, go ahead and follow Alina on Instagram. We're trying to get her to 10K followers. Was that your New Year's goal or what was it?
Yeah, that was like my end of the year goal because I set new goals every year, which is something I would recommend you all do because it definitely keeps you, grinding until literally the last month before the new year, just trying to complete those goals.
Yeah, so just go ahead and follow Alina. It's Alina Star Morse, 2 R's at the end, right? Yeah, Star, 2 R's.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead and follow her on Instagram. If you're listening on the podcast, make sure you share it to a friend. That'll help me out to go ahead and just share this more to other people to keep the movement going. But thank you so much for joining me, Alina. And we'll stay in touch.
Yes, definitely. Keep smiling.
All right. See you guys.